Wes Thuhal min Freyon and welcome to yet another video. This video is a reaction to many comments that appeared under my previous video, which was a review of the third episode of The Rings of Power. And let me tell you, my friends, this is what I love about the Lord of the Rings fandom, about the fans of Professor Tolkien. The discussions, and, well, after all, this is what I love about fandom and geekdom in general, especially with the people that are able to discuss matters on an intelligent and educated level, not just arguing and calling each other names on social media. This concerns, well, the Evil Elves, really, to put it very simply and very simplistically. There is, apparently, an original character in The Rings of Power called Adar, who is the leader and the commander of the orcs, and apparently, from what we know now, we don't know everything, of course, as of making of this video, a third episode just came out. He should be leading the forces of the orcs and looking for Sauron, because apparently he is his servant, his follower, whatever. We will know in a couple of months. But this video that I'm making right now can stand on its own, because it does not really concern Adar, but other elves that actually come from Tolkien's Legendarium, from Tolkien's stories. Now, I said that unlike Adar, who is apparently on the side of one of the Dark Lords, either he worked for, worked, this is a modern word, but you know what I mean, either worked for Morgoth in the past, or Sauron, of course, the greatest follower and chieftain of Morgoth. And he should be our villain in The Rings of Power. Now, I said that there was never in the history of Arda an elf that would willingly work for one of the Dark Lords and lead orcs and the forces of Morgoth or Sauron against his own people. And I said that there was never an evil elf of that sort. Now, of course, many people, quite understandably, and that made me very happy indeed that many people know about this, were mentioning Eol and Maeglin as elves that could be considered evil from Tolkien's Legendarium. Well, yes, but in a way I beg to differ. And please do let me know in the comments down below what you think about it once you've seen the entire video. Now, of course, things like this are open to interpretation and to one's own personal take, opinion, and point of view. Because, of course, this is almost a psychological, sociological, but also metaphysical matter. We are talking about evil and good, and whether there is just purely black and white, good versus evil, or whether there are many shades of grey, or if there is evil in all of us, and what really is true evil. Now, this is my take, my point of view. It doesn't mean that it is the correct one. It doesn't mean that there could not be other interpretations and other opinions, or that the truth, quote unquote, might lie somewhere in the middle. I also said that if we were to label an elf that would fight against an elf or kill another elf, well, we would have to call many elves evil, such as all the elves that actively took part in the kinslaying of Alqualondë, the followers of Feanor. So in that case, we would have to call Feanor an evil elf. Well, I don't. Because, yes, he took part and he actively sparked it, the kinslaying at Alqualondë, because he wanted the ships so he can get to Middle-earth to pursue Morgoth, to retrieve the Silmarils, and, well, fulfill his doom and his destiny. But that was, of course, caused by the lies and deception by Morgoth, by the fact that he stole the Silmarils after destroying the two trees of Valinor with the help of Ungoliant, and as such as himself, the Dark Lord Morgoth, he was only able to corrupt, destroy, twist and mar everything that he touched, everything that he came in contact with. Even elves. Well, he was known, or he is known, for capturing elves and corrupting them and twisting them and destroying them, making orcs. So that is absolutely understandable. But there is a clear difference, looking past or looking away from Feanor, between elves being kind of dicks and nitwits and plotting schemes and scams and acting like idiots towards their own kind and having struggles between each other. Because if elves are basically super beings. Elves are the super beings more than humans. They are the firstborn. They should be the ideal pictures, ideal mirror images of the Valar and Ilúvatar. But still, they are of course prone to have fights and struggles between or in between them, among them. And they are not all perfect, because nobody and nothing is perfect. But that is something different from actively and willingly leading forces of the Dark Lord against their entire kind. So, let me focus on those two specific and concrete cases of those two elves that most of you have pointed out so far, Eol and Maeglin, his son. Now, I shall now provide you with a very brief, for those of you who haven't read the source material, I shall provide you with very, very brief and simplistic analysis, retelling of the story of Eol and Maeglin. So Eol was an elf from the lineage of the Avari and Sindar. Avari were a group of the Morikwendi, which were elves that never journeyed to Aman. And that is why they were called the Dark Elves, or the Elves of Darkness. And no, that did not refer to the color of their skin. The term Dark Elf in Tolkien's Legendarium referred to the fact that they did not behold the light of the two trees. Similarly, very similarly to the Svartalfar in the Norse mythology, which is also one of the things that people are using as an argument for Rondir, the Sylvan Elf. There was Svartalfar in the Norse myths. They really did not refer to them looking as if they came from the African continent. They were beings that shunned the light. They were very close to dwarves. In some versions of the myths, the term was also a near synonym to the term dwarf. And as we know, dwarves live and dwell underground. It's very simple as that. And Eol himself was called the Dark Elf. But of course, once again, not because he was from Africa, but and also not because he would be in the service of the Dark Lord. We could say that this title had multiple reasons, because he was one of the Avari, or one of the Morikwendi, but because he was very famous for devising the black metal called Galvorn, out of which he made a black armor and two swords, Anglachel and Anguirel. And of course, he also forged poisoned javelins, which were very important in his future. And he lived in seclusion, more or less, from any big number of elves in Nan Elmoth, with the permission of King Thingol. And he lived there, alone, in seclusion, with just a couple of servants and the forest creatures, until Aredhel, a sister of Turgon, ventured there. And he fell in love with her. He just saw her and he got, he just wanted her. So he lusted for her and he set an enchantment on Aredhel, so she could not escape the forest and just find his dwellings. Well, later they married and had a son, Maeglin, to whom we will get. Well, as the time went on, Aradel wanted to see her kin of Gondolin. She craved to see her kin and her family. So one day, while Eol was away, she took their son and went to Gondolin. Well, Eol found out about it and he followed them. Arendelle and Maeglin, upon the arrival, they were welcomed with joy, but of course Eol was discovered too. It would not be an interesting story if he wasn't. And he faced the judgment of Turgon, who said that, quite obviously and understandably, for those of you who know the law, he had to stay. Well, he didn't want to stay. Instead, he went psycho and bananas, and instead of obeying, he tried to kill his son with a poison javelin. And Aradel, she protected her son. She got into the way of the javelin and died instead of her son. And for his vile deeds, Eol was then executed. Now his son, Maeglin, was a true son of his father, and he grew up to be a great smith as well as a great warrior. He even created the seventh gate of Gondolin, and had a huge favor of Turgon. But, yes, he wanted to marry Idril, the daughter of Turgon. And there was a little bit of a problem, because she was his first cousin, and that kind of relationship was forbidden. And on top of that, she didn't want him at all. And she was aware of his feelings toward her, and that made her even more disgusted. So when Tuor then later came with warnings that Gondolin was in danger, Maeglin opposed him. And that was one of the main reasons why Turgon didn't leave Gondolin. And that, of course, was one of the main reasons why it ended up very, very badly. But what else happened? Later, Tuor married Idril, and that made Maeglin even madder. Imagine that. And then, on one of his journeys in search for the metals, he was captured by orcs and brought before Morgoth himself. Now imagine being brought before Satan, because Morgoth was basically Satan. So he threatened Maeglin with torture, immense suffering, if he didn't reveal the location of Gondolin. Well, it didn't take much, and Maeglin, he ratted on Gondolin and revealed the secret of the location. And what's more, Morgoth promised him the rule of Gondolin and the hand of Idril for his aid. So Satan told him, basically, so I will either torture you like you have never, ever been in your entire life, or you will have the hand of the woman you love and one of the most famous and glorious elven kingdoms in Middle-earth. So what do you choose? What do you think he chose? Even the most strongest hearts would choose this. So he then returned to Gondolin and didn't say anything, and when Morgoth's forces arrived, he tried to take Idril. Well, he fought Tuor, but Tuor won and Maeglin was killed. He was very young, by the way. I think he was just slightly over 160 years of age, I think. So that's a very young elf. So, of course, there have been beings, both elves and men, or people and women, in the history of Middle-earth who were able to resist the lies and the deceptions and the words and the temptations and the tortures and the devices of Morgoth and Sauron. Yes, true heroes, true strong beings, but not everybody is as strong. So I would say that both Eol and Maeglin, they were not evil per se. They were not on the side of the Dark Lord. They did not become generals or chieftains of Morgoth or Sauron. They did not take active part in a war against their own people for a long time. They were just weak. So they ended up performing vile and truly evil deeds. I am not defending, I am not justifying the acts of Maeglin and of Eol. I am not saying that the things they did were right. I am not saying it just because I want to be correct. I am just saying that this is a different case. That struggles and murders and fights and tragedies in between elves, within their own kin and kind, and just taking active part in the war, going to the side of the Dark Lord, becoming basically an icon. Because if you saw the latest episode of The Rings of Power, you see that the orcs were basically praising Adar. They you can really say from the short snippet that we saw at the end of the 3rd episode, we see that he has already become a famous leader of the orcs. The orcs chanted Adar, 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 Adar. So those are two completely different cases. And I was referring to that because things are always a bit more complicated. So instead of arguing or explaining that in like 100 comments, because I will not be typing one and the same thing in like 100 or 200 comments or arguing with people on Twitter over it, I've decided to make this video. My own personal take, my own personal view of the difference between those elves and Adar, on the nature of evil, on the nature of weakness, and that it's not really, not always, not even in Tolkien's Legendarium black and white. And let me tell me, you, in the comments down below, what you think about it and what your take on it is. We are here to enjoy escapism, we are here to enjoy quality entertainment, and of course, discuss our opinions that will, in most cases, differ. We are not an echo chamber. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think, and that will be all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm out of here.